Thank you for joining us this morning. Our next section is a forum panel discussion. This year, the forum panel will be discussing the key ingredients of industry-academia collaboration. The panel members will also debate on upcoming research megatrends and the outlook for Singapore's research and development in the next decade. This year, we have a multi-talented panel of specialists representing both the industry and academia. The panel comprises of Mr. Ling Kim Boon, General Manager of Partnership Innovation and Enterprise Office at SUTD. Dr. James Ong, Co-founder of Artificial Intelligence Industrial Institute. Mr. Chong Chan Pin, Executive Vice President and General Manager, Products and Solutions at Kulik & Sofa. Mr. Dylan Ng, CEO and Co-founder of Lion Sports International and Supersteam Asia Pacific. Mr. Brian Sun, Director of Career Agility Division, Strategy and Communications at NTUC Learning Hub. To understand their perspectives, let's jump right in. Good morning and welcome back to the First Industry Workshop 2020. We just heard from both of our guests, Dr. Vicky Bangu and Mr. Nicholas Ma, who delivered their keynote addresses. I certainly hope our participants found the sessions just as informative as I did. Moving on to the next session, we have the forum panel discussion. And with me today, I have our 5 panelists. I'll allow them to introduce themselves. Maybe we'll let SUTD kick things off.
Yes, hi, thank you, Julian. Hi, everyone. My name is King Boon. I come from SUTD. I'm the GM in charge of Partnership, Innovation and Enterprise Office. This office basically assists the president of SUTD to help to foster stronger collaborations, working with the industry partners, in particular for research projects and of course, including education aspect and stuff. Yeah, so I look forward to have an interesting discussion today with everyone on the panel. Thank you.
Excellent. How about, can we hear from Dr. James?
Thank you, Julian. Hi, everybody. My name is James Ong. I'm the co-founder of AIII. It stands for Artificial Intelligence Industrial Institute. And also, I've recently been appointed as an adjunct professor at SUTD as well. Glad to be part of this forum. As for what we do at AIII Institute, basically is set up as a think tank to look at issue on sustainable AI, how to make AI sustainable, and we focus a lot on the digital transformation for enterprise. So we'll work with university, which is fitting into the team today, also with the industry, especially startup and enterprise. Thank you.
Great. And let's hear from Mr. Chong Chan Pin.
Hi, my name is, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
yeah,
because I'm not seeing the screen. All right, so my name is Chong Chan Pin. I'm the EVP in Kulik & Sofa. Our company is the only semiconductor equipment manufacturer that is headquartered in Singapore, having moved from the US to Singapore about 10 years ago. So I'm responsible for all the products in the company, and I've been supporting Dr. Yo in terms of the lab for all his students in the SUTD for the last few years. And been exciting to maybe nurture talent in the universities in Singapore and help them to grow into the ecosystems over the years. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chong. Can we introduce Mr. Dylan Ng as well?
Hi, I'm Dylan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lion Sports International. We make cleaning robots, and we make cleaning robots, manufacture them in Singapore. And a big part of our engineering team comes from SUTD. So a lot of SUTD graduates, alumni, and also researchers. And we work very closely with Professor Mohan's Raw Lab in our collaboration.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Dylan. And over to you, Mr. Brian Sun.
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me. Really glad to be part of this forum. I'm Brian. I'm the Director of Career Agility as well as Strategy and Communications at NTUC Learning Hub. I think what we do is really help train workers to prepare for future jobs. And nothing more pertinent in this situation now where there's such upheaval due to COVID-19 across the various industries. And I think all of us here at NTUC are really here to sort of help workers upskill and reskill and prepare for the future.
All right, guys, thank you for the introductions. So I'll just jump right into the questions right now. So first on my list, COVID-19's opportunity to reimagine international partnerships. Now, what does it mean for university-industry collaboration in this time of crisis? Perhaps, King Boon, you want to take up this question?
Okay, thank you, Julian. Yes, maybe I'll kickstart, this discussion. Yeah, well, definitely, I think yes, the COVID-19 pandemic, has affected, our everyday life. So, not just economy, and because of the circuit breaker and things like that. So we all stay at home, and so yes, it's a huge impact on everyone, including the university, including our research work, collaborations works as well. So as what our leaders, our prime ministers is saying, this is going to be a marathon. It's not going to go away so soon. It's going to last for many months to come. So I guess we have to think of how to overcome all these new challenges brought about by the pandemic to our research collaborations, in particular those research work with international partners. So obviously one thing that is we can see immediately is the delay in the progress of the projects. Yeah, and this is actually caused by, of course, all these factors brought about by the pandemic. And I think in particular for international collaborations, one huge impact will be the international travels. So now with all this, border controls, airport being shut down, countries not allow people to come in or even transit. So business travel is definitely out, right now, and also for the next foreseeable few months. Even with the easing, it still be impacted, and I think people will also be more careful, when it comes to traveling. So for collaboration works, sometimes you need to meet face to face. You need to discuss, and then maybe talk about the progress and things like that. So all this now have to happen on virtual, like what we are doing today as well. So that will create some limitations and constraints on what can we share. How, of course, it also will impact on the mode of the collaboration as well. So so this is something I think I think the researchers, all these collaborations, our working, the way that we work with our partners, will call for change. We have to rethink about this. Yeah. So maybe I'll stop here for a while. Yeah, and see what others can chip in as well. Thank you.
Yes, Julian, I'd like to add to King Boon's perspective. My view is that this COVID-19 is 100 years opportunities, especially for two aspects, industry and research, as well as international. Why I say that? Because this is a global pandemic. Every country are being affected in a totally different way at different time. Therefore, there's a lot of opportunity for people and talent across the world to work together. So there's one of it. Second, the impact is huge. Politically, as you all see what happened in the US, economically all over the world, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Then healthcare is a big problem. Then there is a whole so-called acceleration of technology and digital transformation that you need very deep technology. And where do you get them from? You can't get it from a hawker center or anywhere. You have to go from a university. So that's why the industry, university collaboration, at this juncture, this is probably the best opportunity to really shine if we know how to do it right. At the same time, we know that we can't do it by ourselves. We have to go beyond the border control. Even though physically we can't meet, we have to use digital tool like Zoom to the maximum so that it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, and we can still work together to make that happen. So that's just my view. Yeah.
Great. Mr. Chong, do you have anything to add to both these gentlemen's views?
Yeah, I think it's basically reinforcing what King Boon and James has just mentioned, right? I think the need for collaboration is even more required now that we cannot just work in solitude. And I would say that even if you look at all the vaccines that's been developed today, it's a lot of collaboration with universities, right? With different like what universities of Queensland and London and Nottingham and so forth, right? It's a lot of universities as part of because they bring in a lot of research elements that industry partners also need, like so same like us in even though in electronics, right? And of course, during the pandemic, the need for hospital equipment has increased the usage of semiconductor chips. Right? We are equipment makers for semiconductors, right? And all of a sudden, everybody wants a laptop at home, right? Everybody wants Zoom at home, right? Everybody wants a speakerphone at home, right? So all this has increased in that. But then, of course, this is just a surge of short-term demand. But I think the university collaboration in different phases, right, is always required. But I think in this moment, right, where I can just I previously can jump on the plane and go somewhere else and look at different collaborations. Now we are trying to get more tie up with NTU, for example, right? Also, and then of course for the past many years with SUTD, we've been doing a lot of work together, right? Like I said, mentioned in my early statement of nurturing talent, right? So I think we're going to spend even more time to reinforce the collaboration at universities. There's a lot of knowledge, I would say know-how within the universities. We bring in a lot of industry elements. I think the partnership will continue to be stronger and stronger. Like I said, all these vaccines is developed, whether in China or US or London, it's all very close collaboration with universities, right? And I think this is just an example of how the collaboration needs to be even deepened. Right? That's from my perspective.
Julian,
Yes.
and James here. Actually, there's one more dimension I thought I'd like to really highlight, especially at the university. I think people, when they take a look at the university research, they tend to look at the hard science, the technology, and etc. I think there's a big area of the research that has been done in university and the soft science, like the social science and the political science, right? Which is where the whole world is facing right now. It's not just a technology, healthcare issue. It's about the governance structure, the way you think about the world, how do you create a better world? And that's why all this unrest is happening. So I think university has accumulated years of research in this area. Social science is one. And as SUTD, right, is creativity. Creativity is where we need right now to solve many of the problems. So I think that's why I think this university is going to play a big role beyond just the hard science. Yeah. So there's something I'd like to bring up.
Perfect. Maybe Dylan, do you want to take up this answer?
Sure. I mean, with COVID-19, it really exposes the requirements and the needs of robotics and IT and AI. And we see a lot of opportunities for such deployment. However, in deploying all this, we realize that we need we don't have all the answers. That's why the university collaboration becomes even more important. And we are deepening our collaboration with SUTD's raw labs to license more robots and license more ideas, and also to deepen our collaboration in terms of people exchange and partnerships.
Great. Maybe Mr. Brian Sun, do you have a perspective on this?
Absolutely. I think one thing that this crisis has really taught is that we're only as strong as we are united. I think this is a fantastic opportunity to sort of deepen our collaboration with the local institutions as well as with global partners. Industry and university collaboration has been very interesting. I think there's a few different objectives. One objective for the university may be, for example, to deepen research links or to have broader application of their great work that they do across more industries. But another one, I think, and more pertinent for us in this critical time, is how can we use the knowledge of the university to really help create more jobs and to create more employment. with the economic upheaval coming, there's going to be a significant shift. Some industries may grow tremendously. I can think of healthcare. I can think of a lot of digital industries. Some industries will maybe not fare so well. And I think the goal of this collaboration is how can we ensure that our workers are well prepared. And we can only do this if we have the right knowledge and skills to teach them. And I think in something like this is where the universities will really come in with their great cutting edge knowledge to be able to reskill and uptrain our workers for the new normal.
Right, thank you. Now, you mentioned very early on about upskilling the workers. Now, is there such a thing as a collaboration saturation where everybody's partnering everybody else and there's really no opportunity for any more collaboration to happen? Is there really such a phenomenon?
I don't think so, because I think it's a partnership. The more partnerships we have, I think the stronger we are together, the more in sync we can be. But a critical question to ask is, what is the role of each partner? And maybe if you have too many people doing the same role, but not enough people doing another role, then that's where you might see this saturation and this overlap, which leads to unproductive work. One thing that we strongly feel at NTUC is that we have a fantastic ability to reach out to workers. There's over 1 million union members in Singapore at the moment, I think around 1 million. Within Learning Hub ourselves, we deliver over 200,000 training places per year. That is a significant footprint and a significant impact that we can have to outreach to workers. And in a lot of our collaborations with overseas partners, with local universities, local polytechnics, it's about how we can take our strength in network, in outreach, in getting companies on board to be able to really spread the knowledge and proliferate that knowledge so workers can get the latest skills.
Great. Thank you, guys. Okay, so I want to touch on two of the points that was brought up in the discussion a bit earlier. Now, the first point, I think, James, you brought it up, was about accelerating technology. Now, given that technology, the industry is under constant pressure from technological change, shorter product life cycles, intense global competitions. Now, is the industry really at the point where they can depend on the universities for knowledge exchange, or is it, is such a UI collaboration feasible for such a long-term, long-run situation?
Shall I go first?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So on this question about being in the technology industry for the last 30 over years, doing AI 30 over years in the US, then Singapore, then in China, right? I think compressing technology cycle is always going to get shorter and shorter. So what we need to do now is think of a different model by which we can move upstream faster. That means a lot of the industry requirement needs to work with the professor at the beginning of their basic research. Therefore, you can actually get alignment earlier. And this is something I truly believe that we need to do so that the university researcher can be more aware of what's coming. And of course, then on the other side, right, you need to help to bring the research out into the industry. So I think that two-way traffic needs to be enhanced. Usually the industry and the research there's a boundary, right? Then you have to work very hard and they speak very different languages because the researchers speak in they publish paper, they write in a very academic way, right? Then the industry people are more like, maybe the application, maybe even the financial or the business model. So those are languages that I think both sides needs to come together earlier so that we can shorten this cycle. And given the COVID-19 that's happening right now, it's inevitable that this compression is going to be there because everybody will be moving faster all over the world because they want to survive. I think you can witness that in all the country, especially country like China. So they move very quickly. So that, right. Again, that's my view.
Right. King Boon, is such a compression of the life cycle of institutional knowledge or production life cycle, is this a good thing or a bad thing for the university?
Well, I think this is, the reality of, of life, so it's unavoidable. And then, like you say, right, as the pace of the society goes faster and faster, life cycle becomes shorter, so we are constantly under this, pressure, right? So it's you have no choice but to, counter it, And I always believe, yes, the main thing is actually, the what we call the research or the innovation ecosystem, right? We have to look at it, from that perspective, meaning that under this whole ecosystem, there will be so many players, right? Within this innovation or the research ecosystem, and obviously, like you say, right, the products or the company that's behind that will be one important, player. And then, of course, the all the learning institutions or universities, of course, plus those government-funded, research institutes. These are also another important factors or players in this ecosystem. So how does the ecosystem perform to its maximum, ability? Of course, depends on how all these players, among themselves, are able to interact, communicate, and collaborate with each other. And I think from the company's perspective, maybe this one, maybe later Champing can jump in because he's from the from the industry. He probably can speak from his personal experience. I think from company's perspective, if they need something, or they want something to perfect, their technologies or their solutions or their products, of course, if they can do it in-house, that's the best, but that may take a longer time. But but then if they can't do it in-house, or if they want to shorten, their timeline, then I think one natural partner or people that they can go through is obviously the universities, or if not those other neutral or third party research institutes. Yeah, because I think it'll be it'll be quite difficult for them to go to their rivals, or competitors, and then of course that do happen, but usually it doesn't happen that way. So I think there's still a role to play for universities, for our faculty members, yeah. So I guess that's also why universities is always trying to sharpen, our capabilities, our research, strength. Of course, then we bring in our, the very competent or good faculty members, and at the same time, also, we always try to have to create opportunities to work with industry so that we are always up to date. We are always, relevant to the industries, and we know what's happening in the market. Yeah, and then so it's a kind of symbiosis, a kind of interactions, relationship that helps to foster and strengthen the whole ecosystem. Yeah.
Mr. Chong, you'd like to jump in to?
Yeah, so I think when was it Dr. Yeo Kiao Sing? He's from SUTD, right? So when he approached us a few years about helping in the startup of the lab, and then we donated a few pieces of equipment. We were really trying to collaborate and bring in the talents, right? So we bring in our engineers, and we spend some time with the students, and then we teach them how to do the semiconductor process and so forth, right? Of course, all of them are taking notes and so forth, right? We see them as as a part, an extension of our future, right? Future roadmap, future generations, right? And we know that whatever ideas we have in the company, industries, okay, we know, but there's always a new perspective, a fresh perspective from somebody who's looking at it new, maybe an innovation or something like that, right? So I feel that this pipeline of talent from universities is very important, right? We can always, we always say in industry, right? Either you pay somebody 20% more to get a competitor, okay, and then you bring up the level of salaries higher, okay, or you spend a lot of investments upfront, right? Maybe 4 or 5 years ahead of time, okay, that's all upstream, right? And then nurture those talents. And then this morning we're just talking about sponsoring some PhD programs of very, very smart students, right, from Singapore, right? And because we are thinking the long-term path, right, in industries, we cannot do it alone for sure, right? We need the industry, universities, and I mean, and of course, we being an international company, we partner with NUS, NTU, and of course SUTD. But then over in the US side, we partner with UCLA and Berkeley and Stanford and so forth, right? Because we know that some of the ideas and some of the resources are better from an academic point of view that can help to bring in some fresh perspective, right? Because the industry has a lot of bit of a try and error experience, right? We learn from experience, we learn from mistakes, we learn from journeys, we learn from past experiences, right? But when you go back to academics, they always go back to fundamentals of the law of physics, the law of of certain things. And then when that applies back to in the industry experiences, like, oh, why didn't we think about that, right? Why didn't we think about the fundamentals of materials, the fundamentals of electrons, the fundamentals of thermodynamics, right? And I think the marrying the two of them is very, very important because, like I said, industry is good because it's very practical. But sometimes we forget the fundamental basics of physics or chemistry or material science. And I think universities come in because they're not sucked into a day-to-day problem like the business. A business got a fire here and a fire there, right? They always purely focus on what's the reason behind it, what's the rationale behind it, what's the theory behind it, right? And I think when those fundamentals are being brought back to the industry partners, then I think the collaboration can even be a lot better, right? That's why some of the professors always say, have you thought about this? And they say, hey, why didn't we think about that? Because we are so sucked into the problem, right? Or sucked into the situation, right? That's why I think it's very, very important to have this constant stream of industry and universities collaborating. And it could be a student, like we said, or it could be a professor level, okay? Or it could be even, PhD thesis, right? Okay, we have done so a lot of, we easily bring in about, I don't know, probably about hundreds of interns every year, around the world, right? I'm not talking about just Singapore, right? But we nurture them, right? Because the interns, and some of the interns, really turn a knob, right? And they basically, create some new ideas, give us some new ideas to think, and they can even outbeat some of the guys who have 20, 30 years experience inside the company. And of course, they are embarrassed, the guys who are 20 years. But then, we say, how come this guy, 28 years old, right, gave us 3 great ideas that actually worked, right? So we've seen some changes in the last couple of years. And I think, when the market requires shorter product life cycles, we cannot do it alone. Okay, that's something that we keep telling ourselves. We have to find collaborations. We have to find partnerships. And what's the best sources in every country, right? It's the universities, right? Okay, so in Singapore we have 3 great universities, 4 great universities around here. In California, there's UCLA, there's Berkeley, there's Stanford. Okay, in Pennsylvania, there's UPenn. Okay, that's where one of our big offices is. Okay, UPenn, Penn State, and everything. And we really, foster a lot of university relationship within our R&D space. Right. There was a question that EDB has brought up to me. It said, why is it so difficult to get R&D talent, right? In Asia, not talking about Singapore, just in Asia, right? US and Europe has been very, very good in R&D, but Asia has been very good at more like operation, production, manufacturing, all this. But I think the talent needs to be kind of nurtured again. If the companies want to invest, they need to start nurturing some of this talent management. And I think education systems in Asia is all great. Okay, we have all the best universities in the world, also in Asia. But I think the environment needs to kind of nurture more and more of this type of collaboration. When the industry get early engagement with the universities upfront, they can really nurture some of the students so that they think differently and they're more ready and prepped to go into the industries when it's time. Anyway, there's a lot of things we can talk about. I just want to focus on some of the questions that was brought up about industry versus the university collaboration.
All right, so Dylan, you mentioned very early on about collaboration. So I just wanted to understand, what would the landscape look like if there are no university industry collaborations? Can your company still achieve the progress and success that you are currently experiencing?
Yes, I would say without without university industry collaboration, we would still be innovating. However, the quality of innovation and the speed at which we innovate would definitely be slower. If you can imagine, if flowers can't be pollinated by bees and they were just self-pollinating, it will still grow, but it's much slower. So we really treasure the ability and the opportunity to work closely with SUTD, and especially with Raw Labs, and the exchange of people and ideas. A lot of times it's not about who invented what, it's about the flow of people, the flow of ideas, about working together, about having engineers that were well trained in the labs, crossing over to work in our company full time. So all this makes things happen and makes things happen much faster.
Right. King Boon mentioned a very curious or very interesting statement about how academia can play a huge part in research. But is this a chicken and egg issue where the research comes first or the demands of the industry comes first?
Okay, for us at Landspot, we develop products with actual demand. So it is impossible for us to just devote to deep research without foreseeable demand. Hence, we always keep track what is the market requirements and we develop towards that. But along the way, as we go there, we realize, hey, we need maybe some other aspects or some other modules that we can actually tap and license from SUTD, and that's how it can pipe in. Many of these modules, when they first started some time ago, they wouldn't have seen any demand yet. You know, it have been considered like a more basic, a more advanced research, but without any actual demand. Hence, I think it works well both ways.
Great, great. Okay, I really wanted to jump into a point that James made about social sciences, but I think I'll just touch on something that Chan Pin mentioned about R&D in Singapore. Now, I think this is hot off whatever he's talked about, so it may be pertinent right here. So Mr. Chan Pin mentioned about R&D and partnering universities and how important it is. So is there a disparity in the research capacity among institutions in Singapore or say globally? Now, how would a company choose? Let's say, would I want to partner with NUS or should I partner with NTU or SUTD or even SIT for that matter? Is there a disparity in the research, in the level of or whatever they're doing in there? How does one company choose who to go to?
Okay. Okay. Let me start off the conversation, right? And then the rest of the people can chime in, right? I think it starts from the base, okay? So today, I think the base in Singapore, for at least our company, colleagues and so far, has been very much manufacturing and we call it sustaining engineering. That means after the product life has reached a certain stage, you do sustaining support, right? But the innovations are still very much where it originated from the US and from the Europe, right? Can we build that in Singapore? Yes, we have to, but it will take some time to nurture that capability over time, right? And the question is that can those talents be invested to bring up and nurture the Singapore? Yes, we can, if the companies decided to strategically position, for example, Singapore as the next R&D center. But a lot of this, because the US and Europe has a lot of history, right? A lot of equipment or electronics or semiconductor or even talking about like medical, a lot came from those countries, right? So there's a lot of origins and there's a lot of experiences being built over time over there, right? It doesn't mean that you cannot start from here. It means that you need to make a deliberate effort to invest, okay, of your R&D space and budget and time to nurture this. And this journey could be 20 years. It's not going to happen like overnight. But if you don't start, you'll never get started, okay? And you say, oh, okay, Asia will just be for manufacturing, okay? And US will always be R&D, right? So I think, since, like I said, our company is in a position where our headquarters is here now, we like to make more deliberate decisions about investing in those innovations into Singapore. Then we can generate new ideas. We can, have breakthrough. I've seen many companies, even SMEs and startups in Singapore, have brilliant ideas, right? Very brilliant ideas, right? It's just an environment that they are in a much more smaller scope versus the US and Europe, much more global scale, right? But I believe it can be nurtured, right? Provided we, in industry partners, decided that we want to invest, into Singapore. And I think more and more things are coming, right? And then we have a great arm of A-Star, right? So many, R&D, PhD guys, okay? We have to leverage on those talent pools that we have to be able to help the industries. Because at the end of the day, what are we measured in industry? Time to market, right? Product launch, okay? Top line revenue, right? Bottom line profitability, right? Every company will have a P&L. If you launch a product fast, if you launch a product innovation, if you have a uniqueness, you're going to create, market leadership, right? You're going to have profitability. All these things will come later on, right? So I think, we always believe that product innovation is the core of every business. You have a great product, you're going to see a very nice revenue and business in the coming years, right? The same thing for all these guys like Apple and Facebook and Google, right? They are created from a great idea into a product, and the product went into a commercial world. All right, I'm open to listen to other ideas from.
Sure. I'll step in. This is James here. I think concurring with Champing has mentioned. First of all, I feel that Singapore has have a pretty good foundation in terms of R&D, in terms of the university and the talent that we brought in, as well as the A-star, for example, right? I think if we really want to harness what we have, maybe there are three things that I thought is important, right? First of all is the mindset. Okay? Mindset means that, as we all know, R&D, sometimes you will have to take risks. Failure is actually should be a higher percentage, just like in the startup. So if we do R&D and knowing that research that it's not okay to fail, then we cannot do something great. Okay, I think that's first thing. I think the mindset we need to have, and of course in Asia, as Champing has mentioned, we are more operational oriented. So when you want operation, your black belt, you cannot fail. But in R&D, you want to try 10, 20 projects. You hope most of them fail, except one of them will be a big bang, right? So I think that is one thing that is important to look at. So we cannot be too risk averse. We must be willing to accept failure. And failure in R&D is not a bad thing. Just like failure in startup is not a bad thing. That's why the leadership at the corporate level or university has to embrace this kind of mindset and thought leadership. Okay, I think that is one. Right? A second thing is methodology. Methodology meant that from industry to research, there are different kind of methodology. As Champing has mentioned, right? You could be having an industry problem instead of a solution at the university, right? Or you could be in the university, the professor kind of like thinking, wow, you never know what he can come up with, and like in the US. So these are two different model of innovation, right? So I think they all require different type of methods, okay? And of course, the first one has to be efficient, because if you have industry problem, just like you have a tracing problem or the COVID, you have to really you have the right people who understand both the industry and the research community and really go direct and straight to the right people. And you must be able to read the research paper, at least the key point and the hardcore technology. So that is one way of looking at it. If the other way around is more like in the US system where it's very bottom up, every university professor will be doing all kind of research, eventually some of them turn out to be Google, right? With the algorithm to do search, right? So that is another model. Again, with Singapore government, in my opinion, being so invested a lot and willing to invest in R&D, I think there's really a big enough critical mass. I think it's a question of mindset and the methodology. And the third element I thought is important is international collaboration. We don't want to do R&D just in Singapore because that will narrow down. R&D should be across virtual space. I could be talking to a professor in US, in Europe, in China, right? There's language barrier, there's culture barrier, but we must be able to rise above because we are a small nation. So we need to find a way to survive. So we need to learn how to work with everybody in the world of different culture, different languages, different way of doing research, different way of writing things are all different. And then they have different way of operating because the government system are different, right? So I think these are the three things we need to do to achieve that kind of efficiency in R&D. Again, just my perspective, right? I'll pass it to King Boon.
Yes, thank you, James. But maybe I just add on, from the perspective of the R&D landscape, in Singapore, yes. Definitely, I think, Singapore, given our, past 30, 40 years of, or 50 years of economic development, we have come to a point where, R&D, is the way to go. We have no choice. So we have to grow more talent, of course, plus, import, foreign talent. And we have to go up the value chain, and also, to promote, more R&D talents and R&D activities. And that's where I think, the IHL, universities and also A-stars, research institutes, all these are coming to play and becomes very important. Yeah. And in fact, one thing which I think the universities like SUTD, what we emphasize on, is not just research and education. I think another important aspect, going forward is also what we call the innovation and enterprise. Yeah, so that's why we have this, ASA, the RIE, Research Innovation Enterprise, initiatives. So we are also, it's also important for university to, to help to nurture entrepreneurship, to promote innovation, and also, to bring some of this, discoveries, or know-how, to create new startups, bring and to generate more enterprises. So this whole thing is a value chain by itself, and it becomes like what I mentioned just now, the whole ecosystem. And I think Singapore is still, in the works. We're still trying to strengthen, to enlarge, to expand, this whole ecosystem. And then of course, feeding on each other, and then university helping out, the industry giving ideas, to the universities, and of course, university also help to nurture, groom, students, talents, that will go into industries, help the companies and things like that. So yes, I think this is something which I think we are doing right now. And I think SUTD is, playing an important role. And one thing which is distinctive or unique about SUTD is, we are also emphasizing on the design philosophy, right? We are the University of Design and Technology. So design, is a bit of well, not hard science, or what we call, the soft skill, things like that. So when we allude to what we just we were discussing just now about arts and social sciences. So this is also a strong focus, I think, within SUTD. Our students, are exposed to all this softer side of, arts and social sciences knowledge. So, whatever that they think of or they do on hard science or hard technology kind of research, they will always be, starting off from human-centric, from the design aspect, So I think this also, is an environment that SUTD is creating and trying to nurture the next generation of, Singapore future, leaders, which are multifaceted, multidisciplinary. And I think going forward with, post-pandemic, or whatever, world is becoming more and more complex, complicated, So I think, the requirement or the need for all this, multifaceted kind of skills for, to bring everyone, forward will become more and more important. So I think, yes, this is something we are all trying to, every player in the ecosystem is trying to play our part. And I think with the support given by the government, and of course, the efforts put in by everyone, I think, yes, we are heading in the right directions. Yep.
Great. Thank you, King Boon. I really wanted to ask, touch on the second point that just spoke out to me about the conversation the five of you were having. Social science was an issue that I wanted to bring up, but I think King Boon answered that, in which he mentioned the university, the students start off from being human-centric, and that stems from the study of social sciences. I think James also brought out that it's not just study of hard science, but rather soft science as well, social sciences. So yeah, that pretty much answered that particular area of query. Now, something that interested me in my research with this entire topic about university or industry-university collaborations, a very interesting thing that is unique to Singapore, I think, is the innovation parks. Now, we have innovation parks in the Changi Business Park. We have the Jurong area, if I'm not wrong. Now, are these really the future of university-industry collaborations? Now, do these parks really push forward that form of collaborations?
Okay, this is James here. I actually not that familiar with the innovation part. For me, with the COVID-19, I think I have established a totally new mindset right now. There's anything you do does not require a physical element. Of course, we still want to meet, but the thing is that we should think of it as not a must-have. Part of it is because number one, talent are all across the world. Idea can flow to the space, right? So I think, but we still need a place to get together because we are human after all, right? So I think I think innovation park will still play a role, but I think it's not the only way to go about creating the environment for innovation.
I think it really helps to be close together. It's only when people are close together that we have spontaneous ideas and discussions. For example, Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley only because everybody is squeezed together. So all these innovation parks would help. Especially, it is not just buildings that are near each other, but also people linkages, people-to-people relationships and linkages. So for us, the distance, besides being short, is also because our engineers know the researchers or know the alumni or the students at SUTD. Hence, there is also that bonding and the friendship to keep these relationships alive.
Right. Mr. Chanping, do you have any experience with the innovation parks? Does it really help drive collaborations of businesses being in close proximity to one another in any form?
I think the concept of innovation park is good. I don't have a personal experience with the Singapore Innovation Park, right? But I spend a lot of time in the Silicon Valley, right? And when I see, like say you drive on this 101, if you all know where it is, right? Okay, you end up with Facebook, you end up with Google, there is a reason why things are together, right? It's because people share, right? You walk into a Starbucks, okay, in let's just say, Santa Clara or some of those places, you happen to see tech people, right? Okay, then they start to mingle, they start to talk, and people say you create ideas off on a napkin, right? Okay, I think you heard of that before, right?
Yeah.
And because people talk at the Starbucks or people talk at some kind of cafe, and that environment really kind of nurtured, inculcated some kind of innovation sharing, right? Oh, this guy had this social media thing that would do this, and that's how Facebook and Google were all kind of invented in the way of people collaborating in the Silicon Valley. Same thing of the equipment that we make and all these things, right? So I think being together is always a good thing when the ecosystems around it are resting. I mean, you have Fusion Polis, right? You have Biopolis, you have all these tech parks, right? I think all these are all, I mean, I'm so fortunate in Singapore is, government has a lot of good support, right? In the Ayer Rajah campus, so many tech companies around there, right? So I think those are creating very good environment where people can mingle and share, because some of these things may not be formal, right? You don't have to sit in a meeting and have a PowerPoint and for 60 minutes, then you can share, right? Some of these things could be, like I said, right? Okay, the napkin thing, okay, could be a cafe thing, could be a bar thing, and all that, and that's, I see that very, very much in the Silicon Valley where guys hang out a lot, okay, and they talk, Palo Alto, there's a cafe down the road that everybody, because Palo Alto is also where Stanford University is, right? So I think having those hubs are good ecosystems to mingle around. And you'd like to kind of have different peer groups, right? Okay, competitive groups, right? To kind of mingling and the ideas become better and better. But I think, like I said, I think innovation parks are good. But I think, more importantly is the content behind it, how we use those content to actually generate ideas, right? So I think the government has set up so many tech parks everywhere in Singapore. We should try to make more use of it, right? Okay, have more social sessions around it, right? And we talk about the social science, and we really need to have more social around it. Everything cannot just be hard and fast, textbook, right? Go to a meeting, go to a lecture, go to a meeting, and then you get, it has to be, because some of these ideas, as you heard, okay, from all the tech companies, started in garage shop, right? Okay, started in a cafe, right? Started in a napkin, right? Because when you want to nurture an environment of creativity, you have to be less rigid and less structured and more flexible and adaptive. Oh, one idea generate another idea. I mean, I was in Google campus before. There's no cubicles sitting for anybody. Everywhere is a conference room, a park, a bench, okay, two seat, by there. It's considered a meeting room, right? Because they believe that's the way that people can function and be more creative and innovative, right? When they're less structured, less rigid. I'm not saying that we shouldn't go with rigid, but I'm saying that if you want to have, innovation hubs like that, create a botanical garden around that space and people mingle, right? Something like that. And then people can, really, generate ideas from there. That's my experience.
Great. King Boon, with SUTD being in such close proximity to the Changi Business Park, have we leveraged on that synergy with the businesses over there?
Yes, I think there's value, in terms of national development or maybe infrastructure development. I think there's value to have this kind of innovation park, right? So, for example, just how it was mentioned, we have this Fusionopolis, Biopolis, the Ayer Rajah area, right? And the one, NUS is very nearby. So NUS also play a very important role in grooming or nurturing that, ecosystem over there. And then now you talk about Jurong Innovation Park, near Tengah, right? This is something I think we just started. And the one also, with NTU nearby. So NTU is definitely going to play a big role within that region as well. And then the latest one we have is the Punggol, right? The PDD, Punggol Digital District, in Punggol area, where SIT is going to be, also relocated there. So I think, these are probably outcomes of, what the Singapore government have learned over the years, the so-called success formula, right? Using, industry plus academia, there's always a university, or instead of higher learnings, where research and know-hows are recited nearby to try to, create this new infrastructure. I think new infrastructure is necessary, right? For a country to grow, to transform. We always need new receptacles, the infrastructure that will provide the receptacles. And because, technology changes, humans, everyone's lifestyles, changes, so you constantly need to renew your infrastructure. So let's say Jurong, our Jurong Industrial Park, which was first created, maybe that was suited for, the period of time. But going forward, in the 21st century, is maybe becoming less and less relevant. So we need to renew, we need to transform that also over time, right? In the same time, we also need to create new receptacles, new infrastructure. So in the form of what we maybe, in this discussion, we call it the innovation parks. Yeah. So I think there's value in this. I think we can also see, success, over the years. It has become a formula. And by creating something new, bringing in this new thinking, and of course, trying to reflect in the new kind of needs and requirement for a new kind of lifestyle or work style. Yes, then we can then incorporate something into a new receptacles, which they'll bring the momentum forward, for the next phase of development. Yeah. So I'm personally, I think yes, there's value, and I'm quite excited, to see how when Jurong or PDD, when they are ready, how that's going to, bring about the next, phase of development for Singapore, plus of course our younger generations. Yeah. Then go back to your question about SUTD and Changi. Yes, I think yes, we are within the Changi Business Business Park. We have the airport nearby, the logistics, warehousing nearby. Yeah, and then of course, with business CBD, the Changi Business City nearby. But I think, yes, I think there's still more that we can do to help to foster or to even strengthen, the uniqueness of this ecosystem or this Changi, business district region. This is also, demonstrate a point which I also want to add. That means, the success of a business or of an innovation park, there's so much you can do by doing the, cookie butter, the cookie cutter kind of thing. That means these are artificials. You can plan tabletop, do it according to what your vision is, but there's a limit to it. How much you can do. So one example which I can think of is this Changi Business Park. Yes, we can plan it, but whether it's going to develop or transform into what we our desired outcome to be, the one is I would say only time can tell. Yeah, and also it depends on how everyone within that region or that ecosystem are able to come together and then to generate the vibrancies, things like that. So what Champing mentioned about Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, all these places, yes, they a lot of all this actually spontaneous. All this will come about naturally, without human touch. Yeah, how did it happen? I think it's always we can always debate about this issue. But I think for Changi, yes, in terms of planning, there's much we can do. Of course, going forward for the Punggol or the Jurong, districts, I would also, think yes, there's much we can do, but that's a good start, in terms of planning. We can plan what the future is going to be like. But beyond that, I think, it depends on everyone, who is inside there to shape the outcome. Yeah.
Yeah, Julian, James here. I'd like to add to 2 points to what King Boon and Chan Ping has mentioned. I think, first of all, to create innovation part, right, like what Chan Ping has mentioned, the content is what matters, right? Actually, you go to innovation part of it is the social. So I think creating activity, people to get together. Really, if you build trust, you help collaboration in the innovation. So I think physical presence and getting to know each other and know each other's family in the physical location, make it convenient, it does help. At the same time, I think when we look at innovation part, we also need to think out of the box a little bit. We need to think of offline to online combination, right? Don't want to just think all offline, because Singapore, we are very good at building infrastructure. We are the best in the world, probably, right? So we need to think beyond, we need to think like a digital way of innovation part where it's a combination so that it's seamless, right? It's so seamless that even though you're physically innovation park in Changi, right, you're also connected to anybody in the world, in the sense that there's nothing to forbid you to bring in the researcher in New York, and then somebody in Beijing, right? And then you are physically there. I think, how do you create this borderless thing that make it possible? So that's the first point I'd like to make. Second point I'd like to make is that if you observe a lot of the innovation park development in China right now, their focus is delivering on selling land, making money from real estate rather than innovation, which I think I want to warn against, right? Because you can build a lot of this kind of real estate project and then you end up not focusing on really doing the part that you want to do, which is the innovation and the technology and etc. So I think these are the 2 points I'd like to make. Thank you.
Great. Now, Dylan, you mentioned there's people coming together to collaborate, students and researchers and operations people coming together to talk, to share ideas. Now, definitely there will be intellectual property concerns.
Yes.
Now, so how do we deal with conflicts when it comes to IP?
Well, first and foremost, of course, IP is really important, but we must also be very understanding of how much potential a product has. So sometimes certain aspects of the IP we could just license, or certain aspects we patent first, then we start the collaboration. But yet again, if through the joint collaboration we come up with something, then we both share the patent together. Because I think we can grow together faster than by going solo. And also a lot of IP is not just about who owns what. It's about, as long as this idea is protected and we can take care of each other's interests, there's not too much worry over there.
So with the intellectual property, I think depending on the type of collaboration, usually the legal clauses would cover who owns the intellectual property rights. If, for example, the university or ourselves, do we co-create or co-develop a course together with them, in which case the intellectual property is jointly held? Or are we mainly acting as an outreach partner and then the intellectual property solely rests with them? Or the third option is we have our own online courses, the university has their own online courses. Could we place them on the Coursera platform or on the Udemy platform? So I think there's a few ways that the intellectual property is treated depending on who created it and who owns it. I think what we've noticed though is while intellectual property is a key factor for collaboration between institutions to make sure that it is win-win and no one is unfairly treated, to the end user, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if my AI course is owned by IBM or owned by NTUC. I just want to learn AI or I want to learn data analytics.
Right.
I want to learn marketing. Right. So what going back to your previous question of like what we've seen people would have been cause of failure. I think one thing we've seen is an over focus on sort of these legal issues at the expense of the customer experience, at the expense of delivering good content to the workers. The intellectual property absolutely has to be protected. I think no question. But we should also keep in mind that the end goal is to be able to spread that knowledge and share that knowledge so that people can upskill and get better jobs and have better lives.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Okay, so that was some very interesting perspectives that you've been giving so far. Now, I mentioned there's a third question that really spoke up very strongly to me. I realized that many of these platforms feature a lot of courses on STEM, and it may not apply to the everyday common guy, but Singapore being a very STEM-related, very STEM-stance country, now is there really a future for arts and social sciences for collaborations or for learning that matter?
Absolutely. I mean, you're asking, right? I studied philosophy for my undergraduate. So,
right.
And I have to say, while the subject matter is rewarding for personal study, it doesn't have a direct skill application. But the way of thinking and the ability to critically analyze, I use those skills every day.
Right.
And I think the arts and social sciences really foster that sense of all the adaptive and soft skills that we need. When we think of what the future of work will be like in the next say 10, 20 years, we can expect increasing automation, increasing robotics, and increasing digitalization, 100%. What's left for the humans often will be the more creative, the more interpersonal aspect, which I think the arts and social sciences are absolutely critical for. It helps build a more cohesive society. It helps understand our role in the world. So a goal of education cannot just be to give a skill to land your next job right after graduation. It has to form better citizens. And I think arts and social sciences have a critical role in that.
I would think so, though I'm not an expert in arts and social sciences collaboration. We are a deep tech company, hardcore robotics developer. But I believe that as Singapore progresses, the arts and the social sciences become more and more important. And with specialization, each of us can look after a different aspect of what makes human life rich, enriching, and enjoyable in that sense. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration throughout the whole spectrum of knowledge.
Right, great. So let me just jump back into that very interesting word that you use called relationships.
Yes.
Now, university industry collaboration is a petri dish for cultural integration. Now, how does your company account and overcome the differences in culture in these collaborations?
Well, at Lansport, we have a very hard-charging culture. We want to get things done by yesterday. And a lot of times at the university, they are more systematic and more organized. All right, so they follow the Gantt chart. At Lansport, we make things happen. But we tend to understand each other better, especially through these relationships. We know, first and foremost, we trust that the counterpart is doing their best, and we understand the reasons for them doing that because they have many projects ongoing. And they also understand our motivations that we have to get things done fast because we are commercial. And once there's that understanding there, it becomes much easier for us to work together because we'll set more realistic deadlines, and we'll understand that for certain things that maybe at Lansport we can do better, like for example, like fabrications and things like that, we could take that on. And for certain things that the university can do better, for example, like in terms of advanced mathematical calculations or modeling, they could do that. So we can take our best advantages, and we work well together for the betterment of the project.
Great. Okay, great. That's very interesting perspectives and views on from everyone. Now, we just have enough time for one last question. It's a question I've been interested in asking almost anybody I meet. Okay, we talk about success. We're very focused about success, but often we learn the best from failures. So my question is, has there ever been a collaboration that has failed? And what have we learned from that? How have we moved forward from that?
Well, okay. Not every day is a good day. So sometimes things don't work out, all right? And it is part and parcel of life. In fact, a failure is only a failure if we stop there. You know, that we take the paper loss and we sell the shares and it becomes an actual loss. So when things don't go well, and oftentimes it happens, all right? Usually that's where the relationships come in, where we go in together and we see how can we rescue the situation. So rather than attributing blame, it is more about what can we do now. And sometimes we realize there's nothing we can do. Maybe the whole research direction is not going anywhere, so we could just close the project. But many times we realize that through talking and through discussions, we could rescue a lot of things. In fact, if you think about it, like a fried rice can fail halfway, but there's still ways to rescue that fried rice without giving up and throwing it away. So it is actually our approach towards solving problems. And if it's a collaborative and it's in trust, failure seldom comes in that sense. It may take a longer time, it may need more money, more research, it may take more people, but as long as we don't give up, we more or less will reach there. One of the things that we learn is to really focus the research or the collaboration on one aspect. So we don't have very open-ended collaboration that has no fixed goals, or the goalposts are keep shifting. So as long as we have very defined, so there is a start, there is a stop, there is a process, it will succeed.
I think what has led to breakdown or failure is there's operational things within the partnership, so things like poor communication or different objectives that are not aligned. But at the outset, I think the partnership has to be well designed so that the objective is aligned, but also each party knows their role. So if one party's role is for example, bringing in the most cutting-edge knowledge and really being able to deliver that on a consistent basis. If another party's role is to ensure outreach to companies, government often has a big role in providing accreditation, in providing funding support. I think the best partnerships work where everyone has their own area of strength and is able to leverage that area of strength rather than overlap into the different areas in a much less focused way. So the most successful partnerships I've seen, and very happily, I think there have been a number of very successful partnerships over this COVID period. Government, industry, training providers, academic institutions to really help our workers, to really help the down sectors. I think if we can see more of that, Singapore will really be able to emerge stronger. I'm thinking of things like the enhanced training support program run by Skills Future Singapore for the aviation sector, tourism, F&B, etc. Even for the programs to help the self-employed persons. All of this required multi-agency collaboration on the government side, strong collaboration with IHLs, with universities, with polytechnics, all coming together with NTUC to be able to help these workers and upskill them really in their moment of need. It was a really proud moment to see how all of those came together so quickly and to such great effect.
Right. Okay. I've got 3 questions that stem from what you just mentioned. One's about global competition, another one's about STEM, and another one is about intellectual property rights. So sure. I just want to understand from a global perspective, now how is NTUC Learning Hub positioned to handle competition on a global scale? Obviously, NTUC Learning Hub is not the only one that's collaborating with the learning institutions, with the universities to consolidate knowledge, to bring out to the workers, upskill them. But of course, there are online platforms, Coursera, Udemy, global partners who are out there doing the same thing. Now, how is Learning Hub positioned to handle the global competition?
Absolutely. And I think this is a great case in point to demonstrate the value of partnership in times like this. So Learning Hub is a close partner of Udemy, actually. and we help them outreach to the workers here in Singapore. We recently partnered with Go1, which is the world's largest online learning content aggregator and content platform. They have over 500,000 courses available through their website, aggregating content from the likes of Thomson Reuters, from the likes of Skillsoft, so the large global providers. And I think coming to the point of partnership needs to be win-win. We need to bring the best knowledge from around the world to the workers. Is that whether that's from Thomson Reuters, whether that's from Go1, whether that's from IBM, we recently partnered with IBM, whether it's from Coursera or for Udemy. And I think these global providers, they have great content, but they may not be able to outreach to workers in the same way, because it's not as simple a matter of I have a website, or people will automatically come to it. It's you really need to convince, you really need to make learning a part of their daily work, or their or a core part of the company's transformation plan, not even just the HR plan, but learning has to be a core part of how companies prepare their workers for the future. And it's through these more in-depth discussions that we find that content is just one piece of the puzzle. You need industry to adopt, you need people to adopt, you need individuals to adopt. And I think this is where Learning Hub can come in and actually be a platform to be able to outreach and build those strong networks together with the global providers.
Okay, I'm trying to answer it based on what popped out in my mind. As I mentioned earlier, right? If you want to do R&D as a researcher, you must be willing to accept failure. That's why I respect the professor in the US, right? When I studying in the US, University of Texas, right? I work with my professor. He doesn't care whether he's going to succeed or fail. He just believes in what he's doing. So R&D failure is part of the life. Just like if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's like what King Boon tried to push for this industry entrepreneurship, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, you think that every startup you join, you're going to be successful. You must be dreaming, right? It's not going to happen that way. So I think failure, it should be, I call it the next generation of mindset in Singapore, because we have been very successful steady for the last 50 years, right? But the new world we're facing right now, like COVID-19, the competitions are changing, the crises are all different. In fact, nobody knows how to deal with the crisis, even the US, right? So this is totally new. So we need to train creative mind, right? Who are ready to go and do it. And creative mind came from what? Lots of failure, right? You fail from many things. Of course, you must have success as well. So of course, then you need to put in the governance structure such that if you think it's okay to fail, that everybody just keep failing, then it's no good also. But if you think that everybody must succeed all the time, there's no failure, there's no innovation. So I think you find a balance, right? So I think that's where our Asian value is there. We always talk about balance. We are not extreme on one or the other. And where does this value come from? From our social science, from our philosophy, our thought leadership, and our way we think about the world, right? So I think this is something I felt has to be addressed this way to solve the problem. I mean, I don't have the answer, but I think that's the way I like to think about the problem. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Chanpin, you want to jump in and reinforce this point? Do you have a view on your own?
I think if everybody is successful the first time, right? Okay, we're living in the perfect world already, right? Okay. The reason why we do experiments and all this is because we need to learn from mistakes, or learn from failure, learn from or past experiences, right? We always say every R&D project is about 20% success rate already, right? Typically, okay. So, despite you read Wall Street Journal and you see, wow, everybody got, hit $1 billion, because of a fantastic idea, but behind it is maybe 99,000 people fail, right? Behind it, right? So I don't think we should glamorize always that success, okay, is always the path to success, right? Failures actually it's a good stepping stone to success, right? If you think about it, all right? So I think more importantly in the commercial world is that while we like to accept failures or learn from failures, we cannot keep repeating the same mistakes. And that's what I've been always emphasizing, right? Okay, if we had the same mistake in the next project or the next commercial idea that we have to learn from the last 3 ideas that we think, even those will fail. And we build on top of it. Okay, the third time, okay, we're going to be better now. We learned all the first, second, third, right? But if you keep repeating the same 1, 2, 3 again, then you basically pay all your school fees for nothing, right? So, and every R&D, we're not talking about, oh, you spend only $10,000 on a class, right? You could be spending, $100 million on a project, right? And you have 3 projects, is 300 million. So just give you an example, right? So I think more importantly is we have to, learn from those either mistakes or learn from those, stepping stones, learn from those experiences, and you get better, right? Okay. So like every innovation product that we build, okay, we always have been building on building blocks. Okay. Whatever we learn or whatever software we built, we learn from it. We build on top of that, right? We don't recode everything. We don't redo everything. So we build on top of it. So all the 99% problems or 80% problems we've really eliminated. Then we build on top of it. I mean, Microsoft today, Windows 10 is not built from, zero. It was built from, if you remember, DOS 2.11, 3.11. Okay, Windows 3. If you remember Windows 3, we all have Windows 3. There was so many bugs. And then when Win 2K came about, there was a million bugs. But today, I would say that, Windows 10 or Windows, whatever that is, have learned a lot from whatever they have started from. So same thing. So that's one point I want to make is that we have to learn from mistakes. We cannot keep repeating it. The second thing is, I think it goes back to our education system, right? Unfortunately, we are a perfectionist society. You must score so much for PSLE. You must score how many points for O level. You must score so many points for A level. You must get a president scholarship. You must be scholar. It's been, the elitism something of a society that people who cannot catch up. Okay, if you put the Bill Gates and Steve Jobs into our Singapore culture, I'm sure they will fail miserably in their O level, A level. Okay, because these guys are innovation guys, and that's why they drop out from school, right? They drop out from universities and all that because they are innovation guys. But you put them part of the system. The problem is that when they make a mistake, oh, you go to this normal stream, you go to another stream, and then you somehow isolate them at a very young age. Where some people could be excellent geniuses much later point in life. So again, it goes back to our education system, the way we streamline it. And because if you want to bring out a culture of innovation, into the universities, you need to start to have a little different style of approach of education, not just you must score how many A's, you must score how many points. Every time I talk to an O-level student, it's no longer, when my days was, 10 points, very good thing. Now people talk about single digit. Oh, I only got 4 points. Okay, I only got 3 points. Okay, so but it creates, a system where our people are only one mind, one side, one focus on academics, right? Versus on how does it, how do we have a different way of doing things, and how do we have a better, different idea, right? Again, it goes back to again, I'm not critical about. I'm saying that our systems have a lot of merits, so create a lot of bright students, but for some innovation way of doing things, we might need to do it a little bit differently, if you want to bring out a culture and all these things forward. All right, so I think this is kind of my perspective of it.
Great, thank you. So, King Boon, the pressure is on you right now. I see it.
Yes.
So we have innovation as a way forward, and there's a Champin and James are telling us there's a different approach versus the traditionalist school methods. Now, how does the university reconcile these two into a success story?
Well, this is a difficult question. I think, yes, everyone is still trying to find the right answer, yes. But university actually plays many roles, right? So of course we, most important thing is, the education part, right? We groom, the future, the next generation, right? Yeah, by imparting them, the know-how, the knowledge, the skill set, And of course, we also have the faculty, the professors, they also do research. So, well, I think we are trying to, balance everything together. Of course, now there's also another requirement for, to encourage entrepreneurship, encourage startups, students, going into, startups, trying to bring their passions, their know-how, technology into something, that can be useful to the community. Yeah, so I don't have a good answer to your question, but I think if we are able to, I think the keyword is, collaboration. If we are able to, have open collaborations, open communications, And of course, at the same time, just how we're talking about, failures, right? Success and failures. And I think, between that, one important element is actually, maybe I could call it, perseverance, means, the never give up kind of attitude. Then, yes, then that would probably then lead to a good outcome in terms of innovation, or maybe you talk about, enterprise startups. Yeah, so never give up, because I think, like what you say, right? The failures is the mother of success, right? So, you need to have many, well, so-called failures, in order to reach the final big success. So if you don't realize your failure, right? Meaning if you don't give up, you will never become a failure, right? Yeah, you will push you forward, So that's why perseverance is important in my view. Yeah, and then hopefully, yes, it will lead to some, desired outcome. Yes, the success that you're waiting for. So the whole journey is important, and how to carry on the journey with the perseverance, I think is key. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah, sure. Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen. Any parting thoughts?
Okay, this is James. Yeah, parting thought will be adding to what King Boon and Champing has mentioned. I think we talk about this whole failure thing, right? I like to conclude the following. There's actually methods to manage failure and not repeat error that Champing has come out. If you look at all the entrepreneurship methodology, this whole so-called lean startup method, right? You go through fast cycle time, you keep experimenting. It's okay to fail the experiments like Thomas Edison, but you learn from the experience as you go. So this cycle time of accumulation over time and building MVP, right? Minimum viable product. So these are actually well-known methods, okay? We need to teach our children, our student, our talent to think that way, including our professor. I would say it's important, right? So I think that is one element I think we need to go about. There are many thought leaders like Ray Dalio's on the principle, the book, right, that he wrote, actually talk about the same method in everything you do. It's not just about technology, right? Everything we do. That's why I say the soft part of the education, the philosophy, the mindset, how to build out yourself, your character, actually persistent that Kim Boon talk about is actually the whole puzzle. Not just the core skill, but the whole mental strength and development. That's so important to make all these things happen. So I think, again, back to Champing, the education mindset, and the impact in the instillment of the knowledge, right? And then just something similar to that, maybe we need more, we have a lot of good top-down leadership. We need more bottom-up from our people to have independent mind, especially come to creativity and innovation. Yeah. So these are what I want to end with the thoughts. Yeah.
Right, Mr. Chanpin, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it summarizes very similar to what James and Perry King Boon do the same thing, right? Leadership is important. We as this generation of leadership, okay, need to kind of give that opportunity for younger people to grow and talent to, creativity, right? I think integrity, we talk a lot about our social systems, but I think Singapore has a very strong integrity in terms of systems and governance and so forth. We need to continue to carry on. And more important is passion, right? We have to also have the passion to show that we want to collaborate with universities. We want students are successful. We really want the next generation to be really innovative, right? And of course, we talk a lot about the collaboration work, right? How to collaborate. Collaborate means opening up, right? So, I remember when I was in secondary school, I used to hold my textbook close. I don't want to share anything, right? The moment I photostat a lot of notes, I will keep everything to myself. I don't want to, because it was a very, I would say, I can say selfish or the inward culture, right? Everything I know, I keep it to myself. But in this world of fostering collaboration, we have to share, because when you share more, you learn more, okay? Because it's going to be vice versa both ways, right? And I think also, it's also part of the culture that we need to kind of, help to nurture, right? Because, like I said, everybody, today have a good set of notes they keep in a school bag and they bring home themselves. They don't even want to share, right? We need to really learn to be different if you want to share. We talk about international participation and collaboration. You want to share with, some great universities in the world. You have to start sharing what you know, and they can share back what they know, right? And not keep everything to yourself. Oh, we want to be the best country in the world. We want the best company in the world and everything, right? So, and I think the last thing is, the word creativity, right? We have to continue to just, give the environment of, creativity means letting people make mistakes. No ideas is a wrong idea. No idea is a bad idea, right? Okay, so let people express themselves, give the opportunity for them people to create something, because like I said, we have been so one-sided minded, okay, that sometimes any idea outside of idea is wrong idea. So maybe it's it's about being open to new ideas and let people to create. All right, those are my words. Thanks.
Great. King Boon, I see a lot of nods right there. You seem to be you're in agreement with everything that's being said so far.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Nothing for me. Thank you.
All right, great. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chong Chan Pin, Dr. James Ong, Mr. Lim King Boon, Mr. Dylan Ng, and Mr. Brian Sun. Your perspectives this afternoon really helped us understand a little bit more about this industry-university collaboration and how we are paving the way forward for our future. So once again, thank you very much, gentlemen. We hope to catch you guys around.
Thank you, Julian.
Great. We have come to the end of the forum panel session. I hope our participants had informative takeaway on the perspectives of the panelists. Thank you, gentlemen, for the various perspectives. At this juncture, I'd like to thank our panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules to share their valuable insights on industry-academia collaboration. I'm not sure about everyone else, but I certainly learned a lot from that conversation. Once again, I'd like to acknowledge our panel of sponsors for supporting this event. On behalf of SUTD, I'd like to thank them for their generous support.